CJ, we good? Joanne, we good? We good? Okay. I called to order the town council meeting on April 3rd at 6:45 p.m. Madam Clerk, can you start us off in a prayer and a pledge?
Thank you for bringing us together today in a spirit of generosity. May we honor one another by keeping an open mind. May we voice our truth and listen with an open heart. May we discern your will to unite in fruitful outcome. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and then before we get into roll call, I just want the record to reflect that President Alves is out today due to a sickness. She wanted me to pass that along. Yep.
One quick, please.
Sure.
And I would just like to wish our town clerk a happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. 25.
All right, so Madam Clerk, roll call.
Mr. Beauregard?
Here.
Ms. Hamilton?
Here.
Mrs. O'Hara? Here. Mr. Ogier?
Here.
Ms. Alves?
All right. Next up is open forum for non-agenda items only, and this is pursuant to 4246-6D, maximum of 15 minutes. We do have people that signed up, so Mr. Porter.
Thank you. Jeff Porter, 6 Country Way. Tonight, I was just going to respectfully request that the council and the administration consider potentially looking at alternate nights for executive session. I know the past couple meetings we've gone, or you've gone late into the night, and there's been a lot of folks waiting out here. So to be respectful of just everybody's time, so that you're not here until midnight and hours past, that I would just respectfully request that you look at having alternate nights for your executive session meetings. Thank you.
Do you want to tell?
Yeah, I think we already are looking at that, so
Yes.
stay tuned. Next up is it Mally Jones? So I'll make sure I read it right.
Mally Jones, 62 Farrier Street. It's been a while since I've done this. I used to be a fairly regular speaker at Town Council, and after watching the last Town Council meeting, I felt the need to come and say my piece. There were a number of things that happened at that last council meeting that really concerned me, and I think that they need to be talked about. They need to be addressed because they are not something that should be happening in a civilized forum like this, or what should be a civilized forum. Some of the back and forth over the issue about the process for the grant writer I thought was really uncalled for. No one is going to argue that the possible rate of return that was being mentioned is a great rate of return. No one's going to argue about that unless they're, have absolutely no fiscal sense whatsoever. And that's not what the issue was that people were raising. What people were arguing about was not the rate of return. They were arguing about the process or lack thereof that was being followed. There is a process in place, and the process that is here to protect the town fiscally. It's here to protect the taxpayers. Those are my dollars. That's everybody's tax dollars that are being spent. And I understand that apparently the town administrator does have this $5,000 limit for spending, but my understanding is also that that is more for emergency situations. And the fact that you are not aware of certain grant opportunities does not constitute an emergency. That is problematic to me, and I think that the way that it was dealt with was disrespectful to the people who were speaking. We know what a retainer is, and it's not actually a retainer what you were talking about. It was a payment. It's not a retainer. And so please don't insult people's intelligence by talking to people that way. Please don't talk about high-fiving when something comes in, when something gets proved that it's going to be this, that, or the other. That took me back to junior high. That took me back to being on my student council in 7th grade. And we are beyond that. We are adults That kind of behavior is completely unacceptable. It's ridiculous. And what I saw here, or what I heard about here, was basically an end run around a process in order to push forward a particular outcome that someone wanted. And we have a town council here that we have voted in to represent us. We didn't vote in 2 people to represent us. We voted in 5 council members and an administrator, and they should be working together on this stuff. The other thing that I did want to mention is the suggestion to reduce the amount of time that's available for the community to input to town council, and I'm strongly against that. The reasoning that was mentioned for that last time was because apparently the person who mentioned this said that they felt that there was one person who is promoting one particular set of ideas. That's not a reason to reduce the amount of time that this entire town has to speak in a public forum to the town council and to make known to other people in the town, in this public forum, how they feel about things. If you proceed with something like that, then basically what you're doing is you are restricting people's opportunity to talk to someone just because you don't like what someone has come forward who's already spoken. I mean, it's just, that's not okay. That's not an acceptable reason. And if the council decides to move forward with that, it would be a huge shame. I was delighted when the council provided us with more opportunities than we used to have when I used to come, where it was just once a month. People need to feel like they have the opportunity to speak to the council, to say their piece, to bring their concerns, particularly now that the council meetings are being viewed on YouTube. It's not just the people who are here at the meetings who can hear what we have to say. It's the people who are watching tomorrow night or on Saturday afternoon when they have time. And please, please do not restrict that. Thank you.
Next up is Mike Clifford.
Mike Clifford, 489 Black Plain Road. First of all, I'd just like to ask if it's possible, could we put the administrator's recommended proposed budget for this year up on the town website? Is there a reason why we can't, or it isn't up? Or is it impossible to find? I mean, it is a hard site to navigate, so maybe it's up there.
It's a work in progress.
Well, by charter, it's due on the second Monday of March to the Budget Committee. This is the second year it's a work in progress. I served on that Budget Committee for many years and never had a problem with getting the budget in a timely fashion. And I wish we could adhere to the language of the charter. Every year it's a different reason. I don't really care what the reason is. Start earlier or something. But let's honor the charter, please. Secondly,
Mr. Clifford, you're aware that we finally have a finance director for 2 weeks now?
yes, I'm also aware, Paul, that in the past, when Mrs. Hamilton was the finance director, was the town administrator, and I was the budget committee chair, I was aware that she would sit with the finance director and provide him with her numbers to input. But it wasn't her or his financial forms. It was her numbers that went into it. So I don't know why you couldn't just pen something out and have him fill it in.
That process is still the benchmark. I wouldn't say that the previous administrator sent that benchmark. That's the process we follow.
Okay, but not the charter. Secondly, I made a plea several times to have the option of bringing in back the studio major to do a presentation to the council and to the chief of what was in that bond question and what, if it was still feasible to do it. And I've made the suggestion several times that you consider doing that, but I haven't heard anybody respond back when I've made that suggestion. Is there anybody on this council who is inclined to do that at some point in the very near future? Because my concern is that it didn't sound to me, from being at the MBRTF meeting the other night, that they're going to be coming forward with anything soon, maybe May. And if you wait that long with the time frame for the schedule of the election and getting questions on the ballot, if you are in fact going to look at an option B of let's renovate the current police station to the standards that it was to be done in 2016, you're going to have to meet time to meet with the architect and, then get all that information from him and the chief and everybody. So it's going to be taking just as long for that as it will to come up with what other proposal you're going to be putting on. So you shouldn't wait to start on that. You need to start right away if, in fact, you're going to do it. So I'll repeat the question. Is there anybody who will consider doing that? When it was brought up in 2018, I believe it was, John, you actually, no, I'm sorry, it wasn't 2018. When the bond issue came forward and they told you that the bids were going to be about, the cost would be 17 million, I believe it was, the initial cost. There was discussion, and Mrs. Alves said, this is too much money to spend without putting, getting some input from the taxpayers. And I, for one, would like to give them another option on the ballot. And there was a discussion amongst the council members of bringing Studio Major back in to do a presentation. And at that time, even Mr. Beauregard agreed with it. I'm sure now that it's coming from me, we won't be agreeing to it. Maybe you'll prove me wrong. But, there was a benefit to seeing that. We're either, you keep talking about a plan B. That is the only plan B. So if you need to investigate it, we should start quickly. So I'll just ask my question again. Is anybody on here considering that or not?
I would consider it.
Well, could we put it on an agenda and get the ball
Discuss it with
rolling on it?
The other members, sure.
Thank you. The third thing is the solar land tax adjustment. I brought that to the attention of the council last year in the summer months, and then finally in November, we had a meeting on it. I don't believe there's any corrected bills that have gone out so far, and there was substantial errors on those bills. So could we put that on, could you please put that on your agenda as an update type information until that's finally done, so we know it's been done? Because it doesn't appear to me that there's any changes on the online program. And lastly, well, two things. Mr. Beauregard did make a comment at the last meeting when somebody asked to speak or just raised the hand and wanted to be identified. And he said, well, he's on the committee, he can speak. He doesn't need to have a vote. I don't know where that's coming from, because you always took a vote to open up the discussion from anybody on the floor. And the only time that people who served on a committee were allowed to speak was when the budget was being discussed. And if it was their department, then they could raise their hand and there was no votes taken. But if there's a rule about that, sure, but I wasn't aware of that rule, and it's never been invoked in the past. Lastly, and my last comment is, at the end of that meeting, when you were discussing the putting the question, taking the second public comment off of the agenda at the end of the meeting, Mr. Beauregard made a reference to, as the previous speaker read, to one person, and he used he described that one person as he. So I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, John, that it was me that you were talking about. Because who else was it?
I don't engage during an open forum, Mike.
Okay, thank you. Well, I feel he was addressing me, because but for the record, the amount of time that takes, I've spoke 3 times in that type of meeting at the end of the meeting. The first time was on January 27th. I spoke for 2 minutes. The third time was February 21st. I spoke for 2 minutes. And on the 6th, I spoke for less than 3 minutes. It was like 2.5 minutes. So I don't think that's the reason why your meetings are going long. I think it's what Mr. Porter pointed out, that you're in executive session until 9 o'clock, and we all sit here, and then you come out. So that, I think, is the problem. But I'd also like to just bring one more thing to your attention regarding this issue. I felt that was a real slap in the face for him to do that. And he's done other things in the past, like say, you're lucky I even let you speak. And it just seems to go nowhere. Everybody just sits there and accepts that. And I hear a lot about, well, there's nothing we can do. Nothing we can do about the woman who was harassed upstairs. There's nothing you can do about the gentleman who spoke here last month. And I invoke you to meet with the solicitor and go over your rules, because your own rules of order refer to, if there's something in this, if there's something that isn't covered in these rules of order, you'll follow Robert's rules of order. So do yourselves a favor and see what's in Robert's Rules of Order about correcting a member of your own committee or board who acts inappropriately. And see if there's anything in there that's applicable to this council. And let's get the legal opinion from that man. Because this nonsense of just sitting there and saying, you know, nobody's saying anything or defending anybody, it's just going to create a more hostile environment, and it's just going to perpetuate itself. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak on the open forum? Yes, just state your name and your address.
Joey Savigny, 1790 Pound Hill Road. I'm the vice chairman of the budget committee, and just so there's no misconceptions, the budget committee is meeting with department heads. We're well aware of where the budget's going, and when the numbers can become available, we will make them available to the public. I've got nothing else at this time. Thanks.
Anybody else? Last chance. Nope. All right. Before we begin, we're going to add an agenda item at the end for executive session. So, David, I have to ask for a motion on this. Somebody want to make the motion to add?
I'll make a motion to add the executive session at the end of the meeting, and a change to the, an amendment to the agenda. It is for a discussion only. There will be no votes taken since it's not on the agenda.
I'll second.
Do I have to read the exact wording? All right. So, pursuant to the solicitor, discussion only pursuant to RIGL 42465A, Part 5. Any discussions or considerations related to the acquisition or lease of real property for public purposes or of the disposition of publicly held property where in advance public information would be detrimental to the interest of the public. A, discussion regarding the acquisition of real property for public purposes. So that'll be the official motion. And then,
We have
do we
a first and a
still keep the first and second? Okay. Roll call vote.
God,
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton,
yes.
Mrs. O'Hara, Mr. Ogier.
Yes. All right, back to the agenda. Next up is old business, item A, discussion by council vote or other action on status and progress report on completion of specific items. Item 1 is the Municipal Building Review Task Force.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. Just to give you an update from the task force, we took a couple actions the other day. Normally, Paul Nordstrom is here representing the task force. He's got an ongoing family issue that he's been dealing with. He was going to step down from the committee, from the task force. We convinced him to stay, but he stepped down as the chair, and I've been nominated and accepted to become the chair of the committee, so you'll be seeing me here now on a regular basis. So with that being said, we did have a meeting on the 23rd of March with Tecton. We did go over their updated program and summary that they had presented to the council with those reductions. They did meet with the chief and discuss those reductions. The chief didn't agree with some of them, and we put some back. It ended up with some minor and slight increases in the square footage of what they presented. We're still going over that, and Tecton is going to go through the process of a test fit now to determine if a one-story building will work or if it would still need to be a two-story building. If it needs to be a two-story building, the square footage is going to go up because you need to have elevator space and stairwell space and whatnot. And so that's probably a third of what they had reduced when they presented to you guys. And so it depends on how it fits on the site. The other thing that we did talk about was the updates in regards to the immediate repairs to the police station to meet the request of the trust. An asbestos hygienist is out in the buildings this week to examine the buildings and issue a report and specifications, which will be included in the design development drawings, which are 95% complete. There's an estimator waiting for that asbestos report so he can give his estimated numbers on what it will cost to do those immediate repairs. And we're anticipating all that to be done on April 10th. The task force will be meeting on the 13th with Tecton to go over all of that stuff. And hopefully we'll be coming back to the council the following week, and we'd like to have another joint meeting with the council, either the 19th and 20th of April or the 26th and 27th of April. Those are Wednesdays and Thursdays, because they seem to work better for everybody when everyone coming together. I don't know what Tecton's availability is, but we're letting you guys know so you can get us some available dates as well. And then we can get it together and get those dates so that we can start moving this.
Could you give us those dates again, please? The 19th,
The
you said?
19th and 20th of April,
Or?
or the 26th and 27th of
Okay,
April.
thank you. Thank you.
Because we need to stop moving, and the task force is really close to having a solution, and so we need to start moving on that solution. So after going through those two lengthy meetings with Tecton and going over everything, we need to get to that point now we need to say, okay, based on all this conversation, here's the solution. That we'll have a recommendation, the task force will have a recommendation on both what we're looking at for replacement of the building as well as for immediate repairs. We should be ready. We're hoping to have that recommendation ready so it can go out to bid on immediate repairs at that meeting. So you can approve it, and then it can go out for bid. The other stuff is just a matter of, then we'll have to start that process of language from bond council and all of that other stuff, getting a resolution to the General Assembly and whatnot that we've talked about. So we are moving, and we're close to ready. Any questions?
Does anybody have any questions?
Do you want to commit to a date now, or is that what you're looking for?
Well, you got one member that's
I was
not
going
here,
to say, I
so
think we should, I would just
have the
send it
clerk,
to the clerk. and-
poll the members and
Yeah.
get us a date that you're available, and then we'll meet with our group and with Tecton, and we'll get back to you with one of those dates that works.
And
Thank
then, before Paul leaves, I think we also have the Municipal Building Review Task Force invoice. So I think I'll move item 5 up at this point, since that way he doesn't have to come back up. Payment of invoices, discussion by council vote or other action on payment of invoices, Municipal Building Review Task Force, Tecton Architects, invoice number 46066.
Yeah, you should have some paperwork that we recommended payment of invoice 46066 dated February 28th in the amount of $2,500. Just so you're aware, right now you're running 2 projects with Tecton. You're running the new construction project, and this is coming out of, and then the other one that we just paid last month was on the immediate repairs. So one is the original contract, which this one is, and the other one, what we talk about with immediate repairs, is an amended contract. It's an amendment to the contract. So this $2,500 is coming out of, this was coming out of the original contract, which was going for public meetings and presentations for the bond, which covers those 2 meetings that we had with the council.
Okay, so this $2,500 is specifically for the meetings,
Yes.
right? Okay. And so we have 2 contracts?
Well,
with
you
them?
have 2 projects, 1 contract, 2
Oh,
projects.
one contract.
They each have
okay.
their own budget.
Right,
And this is coming out of the first budget for
Okay.
the replacement of the police station.
right, okay.
And that will leave $2,500 in that contract to do public hearings, public presentations, and whatnot going forward, so that we can inform the public about where we're going.
My only question is I know at the last joint meeting, I believe, I forget his name. Who's the architect's name? Jeff
Jeff McElravy,
He mentioned that
Rebecca
his,
Hopkins.
he mentioned that his the dollars left in that contract maybe
Exceeded.
gone almost. So with the work that you just described that's being done, does that fall under this contract, or is that going to be separate?
Doing the test fit.
Yeah, all
He's
that
continuing to do that under
under
that
this.
contract.
Okay.
And just so everyone is aware, that original contract was for two runs on this. They're on their 4th, and they haven't charged us more.
Right,
So
yeah.
they're being real generous with us. They're being understanding, but we can only go so far, and we're getting close to that point.
Gotcha. Thanks, Paul. Does anybody have any questions?
No, I'll make a motion to accept Tecton Architects invoice 46066 dated February 28th, 2013, in the amount of $2,500.
That's a motion. Is there a second?
Hold on. You said 2013, it's 2023.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
2023, dated February 28th, 2023, in the amount of $2,500.
Okay, roll call vote.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara. Mr. Ogier.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Now, back up to old business. Item 2, under Part A, the 3 to 5 year forecast. Is there any update on this?
That's right. I have a planned a meeting with Ms. Hamilton, Ms. Alves. We have a meeting in 2 weeks, I think, 2 Thursdays from now, to go over it, just to clarify the question at hand and the solution as to what we're looking for. I had provided them, I had sent you guys an email of what I was working on originally. They had mentioned that this isn't really what they want. So I figured we could set up a meeting, get more clarification, and we can get that sent out to you guys.
Okay. Is there plans to bring it back to the council?
Yes.
Can I
Okay.
ask a question?
Sure.
Sir, how accurate can a 5-year forecast even be?
Depending on how many factors are included, the problem is with a forecast like that, the more factors you throw into it, the more maybes you get, and the further away from a solidified answer that you get. It's kind of like when a plane gets off course, the further it goes, the further away it is from its actual destination. So it's not, the 5 years out isn't going to be that accurate. But 1 year might be accurate, and so on and so forth. But the multitude of different factors are a bunch of maybes. It gets less and less clear of an answer. That's just how a forecast goes in general.
I disagree slightly. No, it's a good question. It's a great question. But I disagree slightly with the statement that was made. I think it goes into the input variables, not to be too technical, that you're using for your model.
Right.
1 year should be pretty accurate. It should be like
Right,
98,
which I agree,
99% confidence. And, I think, you could say that, well, COVID kind of messed up the model, but you could throw out the COVID years and take a weighted average before and after. I know one thing I would like to see is, what's the impact of the tax rate potentially with debt that's coming out? Other communities do it. I think it would be good to know. And you can disclaim everywhere that this is all dependent on these conditions. But,
Which I would do.
I think the forecast could be pretty accurate, at least within 3 years, I would say.
Which is why I want to definitely meet with some of the town councils so we can get a closer idea of what we want to get out of the bigger picture out of this.
Okay.
Can I just say something?
Sure.
So basically, we're just looking for our revenues, and we want depreciation on tangibles, and we want to find out what we're retiring as far as our debt, so that we have a better idea of the total impact on the tax rate when we
Certainly.
have a final number.
The Excel had sent you guys, the original one, well, the second one, sorry. The second one I had sent you guys did have, at the very bottom, it had debt service retirement, and then on a separate tab, it also had that. It didn't have depreciation yet. That is something that Jerry Ann and I have already worked on. But those, depreciation, debt service, those are, relatively easy things that we can get for you. But again, we just want to have a more open discussion of what we're looking for, what you guys are looking for, and just hone in on that.
Good. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay. Moving on. Next up is grants. We started adding this. I know we've learned of a few grants that have come up. I guess I just want to know, is there any update on any of the existing grants, and or are there any grants that we may be looking to apply for?
Update, the $375,000 police vehicle equipment, more administrative work has to be submitted so that the money can be released to the town. That'll be coming. Town planner and the chief of police are going to work together to have that happen. As far as additional grants, Rhode Island Commerce has what's called the Site Readiness Grant. And the grant writer we had retained for 1 month has applied for that. It's up to $125,000 to do surveys, studies, and planning. So that's been applied for. answer should come back around June on that piece. There was also other things such as asbestos abatement, but that would have taken a longer time to figure out when that would come in. And the council has already gone out, we've gone out RFP. Mr. Pendergast is here to address that if you have any questions about that. Getting back to the grants. Also applied for a Hallowell grant. And I want to make it clear to everybody, there's no emergency here, never was. Hallowell grant through HUD, applied to Congressman Cicilline's office for $1 million to take and use it for passive recreation with the ideas that people had mentioned, council members had mentioned, such as pickleball, splash pads, park benches, shade trees, irrigation, proper irrigation for the community garden, and that's been applied for too. And I want to make it very clear, both of these do not require a match. That's it.
Thank you. Anybody have anything else they want to add, or any comments, discussion?
Do you anticipate any other grants being applied for in the next several weeks?
No, we do not have a grant writer currently. So as you'll see on the agenda, there is a discussion of RSP for a grant writer. Hopefully that can move quickly. And even at that pace, it'll be at least a month and a half before we could bring somebody on board with the notice in the newspapers and then interviewing the grant, the writer applicants.
Well, I was just thinking, I know we've had the planner do, and Bobby Monaghan do some grant writing if there was something that you felt would be of particular interest, and, you know, we all agreed we shouldn't, you know, not take advantage of something right now. If there's something in the next couple of weeks before we rectify this situation.
Yeah, I want to reiterate what I said previously and why we went into hiring a grant writer. They are super busy. They don't have the time to write grants nor administrate grants at this point. Writing a grant takes less time than administrating and managing it. That's the hard part about a grant. So, no, they can't unless it's something super. And I don't foresee any grant coming up in the near future unless you found one, Councilor Hamilton. Something that
If I find one, I'll let you know. So the Rhode Island Commerce Site Readiness Grant is going to be, you'll know when?
I've been told by the previous grant writer by June we'd have a definite answer on that.
Okay, so right now you've just applied for like a letter of intent. You haven't actually done the actual grant writing for this.
The grant application has been submitted.
The grant application.
Mhm.
And, okay. All right, I just didn't hear of this before, unless I was sleeping. Okay,
Well, Councilor, you know, you can feel free to call me any day.
well, I guess I'll have to call you every day, because I'm surprised every other week, so.
Well, I'm surprised that you haven't called me if you have so much interest in this.
Okay,
I've
we're gonna,
extended that,
Well,
excuse me, Mr.
I think-
President, I'm speaking. I've
Paul.
offered that opportunity many a time.
All right, I'm gonna set a tone here tonight. All right, the back and forth. Yes, we're all grown up. We know how to use the phone. Okay, I don't want the back and forth to continue on. It's okay to debate. It's okay to bring up a difference of opinion, but I think last meeting, emotions and frustrations played a big role in the conversations, and so I think it's just good that we just focus on what we need to focus on. I guess, Paul, if you have a way to communicate with us in terms of what grants you're looking to apply for, I think that would be really great. And if we need to have an emergency meeting, then we have an emergency meeting if something does come up and we need additional resources to achieve those. And I think if we're looking to apply for things from Hallowell or other things like that, I think it may be good to loop in the Hallowell Review Committee. I don't know how well they've been consulted on any of this. Same goes to any committee. I'm just picking them as an example because I see Jeff. But just to make sure that we're actually getting the dollars for the right project and the right purpose, and we're going to know how to use those when they do come in. So, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I'm glad you cut me off, thank you.
All righty. Does anybody have anything else to add on grants? All righty, moving on. So next up was discussion by council vote of the action on ordinance to amendment section 15.9 to reduce the weight limit for trucks from 35,000 pounds to 5 tons requiring a special permit from the town administrator. After David looked into this further, after the solicitor looked into this further, we have decided to not proceed with this change at this time.
That's correct.
Perfect. So we will remove that from the agenda. Which brings us now to new business. Discussion by council vote or other action on appointments to town boards and commissions. First up is the Historic District Commission, appointed by the town council. Item A, one appointment for a 3-year term ending on 11/30/2025. We have one application, James. Is James here? I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Swizerman?
Swizerban? Okay. We have, I believe, one application. Is that all I saw?
Mr. Vice President,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Mr. James Swizerman.
That's a motion. Is there a second?
Second?
Okay, roll call vote.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yes.
Mr. Ogier.
Yes. Next up is resignation from Planning Board, member Michael Fournier. We have his letter of resignation that was submitted to the Planning Board Chair, the Town Planner, the Assistant Planner, the Council President, and the Administrator. Is there a motion to accept his resignation?
I make motion that we accept Michael Fournier's resignation with regret and with appreciation for the time he has committed to that position.
I'll second.
Second, and then for discussion, if we accept it, we'll just send out a thank you for his service to the town. Roll call vote.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yes?
Mr. Ogier.
Yes. All righty. Next up, multi-generational advisory committee. There are a few of these here. I don't know how many we have. I think we only have a couple. The first one is,
Mr. Vice President?
Yep.
I would just like to ask, have these been advertised in the newspaper, these positions?
So the multi-generational has not been advertised. We just have it on the website with open seats. We have the link showing available sites, and you go onto that website and look.
I think, what's fair is fair. I think not everybody goes on the town website, but it would be a good idea to advertise these positions to give everybody the fair chance to put in an application.
Does anybody have any other discussion?
Would that be the normal procedure, Madam Clerk?
Usually we do advertise, but it seemed that there were a lot of seats already. It seemed like they were already going to be filled when the committee was here. So we were under the impression that we did not need to look for any more applications.
I see.
So
And then, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know the application's here. Has there been anybody else that has applied? I thought I saw one from a while back, a couple meetings ago. I'm just trying to figure out how we keep those.
I usually keep them in a file.
Okay.
Yes.
We do have people that applied, unless anybody wants to make a motion to defer it. I think we should probably proceed with filling the seats.
Yeah, I would make a motion to fill one of the vacancies with Donna Naradoe. She has submitted an application. She has been with the town for many years. She's received information about the board from Linda Tebow, so we have a very reasonable process going through. She was on the school committee, and she's looking to serve the community, so I recommend Donna Naradoe.
That is a motion. Is there a second?
Second for discussion?
Yes.
I think Donna Naradori would be an excellent addition to the board. However, in the interest of fairness, I think that we should advertise for these positions before we accept any applications.
Okay, well, that's it. good point.
And it's nothing against Donna Naradoe. I know her, and I think she'd be fantastic to have on that board.
So the question I have is this board, under discussion, this board was created because we had the original grant for $4 million with a anticipated start date of 5/1, or roughly 5/1. So we're already in April. We have no master plan. We have no site plan. We have nothing. So my concern is, I agree with the fairness. My concern is that we have qualified people who could potentially start getting this project going. I guess I need to know, how strict is that 5/1 date? Because I think the total project was expected to be done in a year.
When you're filling out a grant, they ask you a start date and a completion date. You know, most of the grants have 1 year. But
Right.
it's not held to that. You'll see some that go 3, 4 years. So those are dates that are put in to meet the requirement of the start date and end date. The end date is not written in stone.
Is there a process to amend? I'm assuming you're gonna have to go for an amendment to extend the extension for the grant, I should say. So, and is it guaranteed that we would even get the extension if we delayed on our own accord?
I can't answer that question. That's a hypothetical that I just can't answer.
Right, yeah, no, I'm
You
just,
can amend
I
it.
just,
You
yeah.
can amend it. You can actually amend location, I don't want to get into too much. You can amend it.
Okay. I think it would probably be good to at least fill the positions we have, and then with the people that we have that have taken the time to apply. And then I think we should look to advertise, because I do agree, we did have good luck in the past when we advertised for positions, and I think, Councilman Bierga, I think we even mentioned the idea that we should probably look to advertise in the paper at least quarterly positions through a resolution. I think that would be a good idea. So we have a motion and a second for Donna Naradoe. If there's no other discussion, I'll ask for a roll call vote.
What position is she applying for? Which
Oh, I
is-
thought we were under one member of the town council, unless,
She would have to be for the public.
So it would be,
so,
Multi-generational.
so A, one member of the town council for a term of 2/21/2023 to 2/20/2025, is that,
No, that would be,
that would not be it?
That'd be the member of the public, the second
multi-generation.
one.
okay. So I think all right, we'll walk back. So nowhere on this application does it specify, this is a pretty unique blend of people that are applying. It's a lot of different communities, committees, it's a lot of different members of the community, but nowhere on our application does it indicate where this person's coming from. Is this from the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee?
no, she would just be a member of the public, not, the Senior Citizen
Okay.
Advisory is putting forward
Okay.
2 people.
So I think I'm gonna ask, going forward, if people apply, if we can find out what one they are applying for. It would just be good to know so that we can actually slide them into the right
So
slot.
there is a box on the application that says other, and I did call to confirm, and we crossed out Senior Citizens Committee and put multi-generational, because they were confused.
Right, I think I'm just confused as to which person are we without me having talked to Donna, I wouldn't know what position she's actually looking to apply for.
Okay. So
Mr.
to
Ogier?
to make it clear, I mean, one member of the town
Linda Tebow would
council,
like to
then we
make a
have,
suggestion.
Yeah, I was gonna get to Linda. Sure.
Could you go right here so we can hear you? Thank you.
Linda Tebow, 83 St. Paul Street in North Smithfield. May I make a suggestion? Because, you know, if you haven't seen these names before and you want to think about it, perhaps you could just vote on the fact that this committee can begin, you know, approve that we have a committee and give you time, and if you want to have other people apply, and then you can make your selections that way more carefully. Okay? Just a suggestion.
Well, I think we already have this committee approved.
No, I think I know what Linda's trying to say, is
Yeah.
she's saying we just, I think you're saying appoint the people and then figure out where they fall. So the committee, I think, is moving forward. It's just, yeah, it's just we're trying to figure out where the people who applied, where we're assigning them, that's all.
So she would be B then. We put
So
her in
B?
a B.
Okay, so then,
Let's do that.
Paulette, you made the motion, so if you
I'll
could
make
amend
a
it.
motion to, I'll amend the motion to include Donna Naradoe as one member of the public for a term from 2/21/23 to 2/20/25.
Okay. Is there a second on that?
I'll second.
Michael.
Hold on a second. I will recognize Mike, but only according to our rules of order, which I refreshed because John put something on the agenda, only the president can recognize somebody from the floor without a vote, but I will recognize Mike.
I just have one question. You're talking about advertising these.
Aside, Mike, if you could go up.
No, I actually agree with Mr. Beauregard's suggestion that you shouldn't be appointing these people until they have been advertised. And in case in point on this one, if I'm reading this thing correctly, there's only one member of the public for that term appointed by the town council. The other member of the public is appointed by the town administrator. So what are you doing? You know, that's like closing the door on an opportunity for a member of the public to get appointed by the council. So I do think there's merit in advertising. I just don't get it. You either have to be a senior citizen or scout. That's the only position that's available for a regular townsperson to apply for, and you're not and you should be advertising, letting people know that. I think Mr. Beauregard made sense.
I think I'm having heart palpitations.
It's okay. It's
So-
okay.
Yeah, if you could just go to the podium, please. Thank you. And just state your name and address.
Josh
for the-
Sylvia, 24 Rainbow Lane. And I would like to say that, you know, as I said, it has been on the website. I really am anxious to see this committee move forward and start getting the ball rolling. I understand your concern, Mr. Beauregard, but I really want to see this committee start meeting and getting, there's a lot that needs to get done before the ground's even broken, and that's going to take some time to begin with. If, you know, it's been a month since this has been on the agenda, you know, let's move forward and see what we can do with who we have, and then if we need additional members to get a full committee to get it to work, then we can address it, but that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Isn't that what Ms. Tebow said? Isn't that, your recommendation is the same as his?
No.
His is a little different. So Linda was saying,
But
move-
they're
on the
both
same
saying, let's get the show on the road.
same page.
They're on the
but-
same page.
So I agree. I think we should appoint, I still think we should appoint people that applied. You know, we've done it in the past with other boards and commissions. We've had this same debate very recently when we formed a new commission. I think people have taken the time, they've gone out. I don't know if it's in the newsletter, but people have found it. It is advertised technically on the website. So it would be, I think, a disservice to the people that have gone through the process of already applying. But I do think with that said, we should fix the process for how we are advertising.
Mr. Doja, can I make a suggestion?
Yep.
I think at this point, what we should suggest is that, for instance, the scouts, we're looking for 2 people from the scouts. If the scouts, we let them know right now, Mr. Silva's here, we let them know right now. Get your members up, get the applications in for your members, because the scouts are going to suggest, you guys are going to make a suggestion for 2 bodies, right?
You've already got them.
Oh, we do? I only have the 1 application in my packet.
No.
No,
That was emailed to,
I only have the 1 application in my packet. That's where the disconnect is.
That's where some of my, I remember seeing people had emailed or something a while back on one of our agenda items, but the item was never on the agenda. So that's why I was wondering, do we have any other applications? David, do you want to say something?
Just a point of order. Mr. Vadney pointed it out. I didn't see these dates that were added by the clerk, but the resolution indicates that the membership has to be coterminous with the council. There's no dates in the resolution, so whatever you appoint them to as of, it ends with your term. So it can't be we can't go to, I don't know where the February 20th, 2020, where the 10th came from.
That was our onboard, where it gives us the dates when we start and they finish in it. You had to put in a certain amount of time. You can't just leave it blank. So we had to put in a date.
I understand, but the date would be,
Okay,
the
so,
date, the latest
So-
date could be is the date that you end your term.
So David, are you saying we should table it then until we get the correct dates? Or can we proceed, but just, if we proceed,
You can proceed,
amend?
it. There's nothing wrong with the resolution, what's wrong is your agenda.
Okay.
So your agenda's got the wrong date, the resolution is correct.
I guess my only other concern is, I brought it up just recently with the 5/1 start date, is we were in a rush to pass this, and I agree with kind of what the clerk was saying, is and what Mr. Silver was saying, is that it's been almost a month and a half, and we haven't touched this board or commission. So if we advertise it, we're talking, what, 2 more weeks? Now we're into May, probably, unless we say we're coming back at the end of April. But even then, your first meeting is going to be in May. Technically, we're already inside the grant window at that point. So I think it would be, I don't know, we're not going to fill a quorum tonight, but I just think that we need to fix the advertising process, I think. Make it standard, not, change with each board and commission and change each time we appoint, So I still think we should appoint the people. We do have a first and a second, so I will ask for a roll call vote.
I'm just unclear, what am I voting for here, because, so are we voting for the one member on B?
Yep.
And it would be for a term that runs coterminous with the council, and the clerk will make that clear. Because that's what the ordinance says.
And I will,
That's what the resolution says.
and I just want to be clear, this has been advertised to an extent. It's been in the papers, it's been in NRI now, it just hasn't had a link. I mean, this topic
Correct.
has been covered since at least January when this was proposed. So, I think then maybe what we should do is when these things get picked up, we should add a link of how to apply somewhere on a digital, subscription, like NRI Now or something like that. But this isn't like a new topic that just came at the last meeting. If that was the case, I would totally slow this down, but this needs to get started. This delay it's going to impact the grant, and I don't want us to lose the $4 million by us just dragging our feet, because I'm not convinced that would be a reason to extend. So yes, it would be for item B, one member of the public for a term from 2/21/23 to the end of the council's term, which would be 11/30/24. Appointment by the town council. Roll call vote.
Mr. Biragad.
Nothing against Ms. Nardoi, but I have to be a no on this.
Ms. Hamilton.
yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yes.
Mr. Ogier.
Yes.
Oh, we got our first member of the board.
Congratulations.
We do? Oh, yeah, there we go.
We have another member that applied, Adriana Ramirez Martin. Is Adriana here? No. Okay. Joanne, do you know which section she was looking to apply for? I'm assuming it's going to be town council.
Not town council, this is another member of the public.
Okay.
Because the first one is member of the town council. We're not looking for that one, we're looking for C.
Isn't it the multi-generational
Yeah,
advisory?
Yes, multi-generational that's this committee that we're looking at right now, but the only other position for the public is C.
By the town administrator.
Town administrator's appointment.
A lot of the appointments on here are per the Director of Public Works or the Town Planner. So I'm not even sure if those, we can submit an application for those. So that's why we didn't advertise any more than we already had, because most of the seats seem to be like, they're very limited to who can apply.
Okay, so you're saying basically then, I'm sorry, the town planner would provide a designee, so we should get that name from that person, and the Director of Public Works also should be providing a designee, so we can have those two filled,
Correct.
correct?
Also with the scout troop. And I
And
will look
also
into
the
those
scouts.
applications and see.
Okay. And we have to make sure that, yeah, we get those. Okay,
Mr.
so I guess
President,
then that's,
Okay, I
Mr.
think,
President,
yes.
I just want to point out, the ex-officio members of the Public Works and the plan are non-voting members.
right.
So the quorum is 7. As you know, there was a lot of discussion about this. I know
Yep.
we get away from it, about whether it was 9 members or 5 members or 7. And ultimately, the council settled on 7 members.
That's right.
And they decided 7 voting members. So that
Right.
means you need 4 for a quorum,
Yep,
right? And you wanted 1 member of the council, 1 member from the public. You wanted a member from the scout troops, 438 or 1139. You wanted 2 positions because you assumed 1 from each one.
right.
And then you thought it was important, at least the council thought it was important, that there was going to be 2 members from the citizen, recommended by the Citizen Advisory Committee. So that's where your membership comes from. Theoretically, the scouts would submit names to you, and the advisory committee would submit names to you if they haven't already.
Yeah, we originally had 3 at-large members, and it was cut down from 9 to 7, and you eliminated 2 at-large members. I wasn't here that day. That's why this is a bit of a surprise to me. I apologize.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay, well, then we're done with that.
Yeah,
There's a simple, this individual, she did also express interest in not just the multi-generational advisory committee, but she also said she would be willing to be considered for the Conservation Commission, the Board of Trustees, the Juvenile Hearing Board, Parks and Rec.
Right.
okay,
Good point.
good point. Alrighty, there's no other applications for the multi-generational advisory committee. The only question I have before we come back to that is, so Joanne, are we recommending that everybody applies through you like we've done? So people are gonna send their, if somebody has a name that's sent to, say, one of us, they have to fill out the email, they either have to go to the office and pick up a paper application or fill it out online?
Correct.
Okay.
Would you like us to put this in, an advertisement still? We'll put it on the website
You can't now
and,
because there's no more public positions.
So, I think what I'm gonna do is, and David, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm gonna reconsider my vote. I'm in the majority, I can do this at this meeting. There's so much confusion with this, and I think the execution of this, probably we could have done a little better. So I am going to reconsider my vote and ask that we delay this, and if you think we could have like a 10-minute conversation at our meeting on the 11th, I think get this figured out when Kim's back, and then we can figure out a course of action going forward, because it's just, there's too much confusion, and I think we should just clarify this.
Mr. Chairman, you do, like you indicated, you have a meeting for the 11th, so we'll make sure that this is on that day.
Just a quick conversation.
That's next Tuesday.
Yep. Just a quick conversation about it and figure out how we want to handle it.
Procedurally, you have to make a motion to reconsider your vote, needs to be seconded, and then there
Right,
needs
that's what I was
be a
gonna get to.
majority vote.
So I'll make a motion to reconsider my vote.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Mr. Biragad?
I don't vote,
Oh,
right?
you didn't vote. Ms. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Ogier?
Yes. And then, in the meantime, it would be great if we could make sure it's in the newsletter this week, so at least we can start that process in advance.
So you only want it in the newsletter?
No, I think it should
Because we
be,
usually put it in the newsletter and the website.
so I think we need to have I guess we really need to have a conversation of how we want to handle advertising, because there's no processes, what I've learned tonight. It's hit or miss. So I think when we figure out a process, it needs to be, when we have a new position for a committee or group, it should be in the paper, like the Valley Breeze, if we want to do NRI now, the newsletter, online, and the website. I think we just need to keep it the same and consistent, so we don't keep coming back and having these conversations.
May I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Can we, since we have representatives here, can we ask the scouts and the seniors to get the two people up, get their names in? I know you said you did, so we'll get them. Two? You got two?
I have to.
Okay. We have two. So let's get those up front, and we'll have them in the next meeting.
So then, are you saying for the 11th?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what we mean.
you and Melissa.
Josh, will you
Thank you.
get your application in?
I have one, but I don't know where it went. I think I had emailed it to Kim back in David's first time. But
Okay.
I'll make sure that it's done, everything's done the right way, and I'll have it to you.
Okay. If they already fill out the application, just have Kim reach out to Joanne and
Mhm.
we can find it, I'm sure.
I think I did it before it was a formal application.
All right.
It was basically an email, here's why, you know.
Okay. Thank you so much for
I'll make sure
understanding.
it's done properly.
Thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Clarification. Is the council going to make a decision if you want it to go into a newspaper of general circulation and/or NRI Now?
So if we make that, we can't, actually, do we need to make a vote on that, David? No? I think we just need to have a conversation about the process.
You're gonna have to settle what process you want for
I think we need to create a resolution on, or at least to codify something on how we want to advertise for open positions, for boards and commissions. It seems that we've done it in the past where we have a name, we just fill the seat, and then we have other times go through an application process. It changes every administration, it changes every council. So I think we need to have something consistent, and then how do we advertise for all the open boards and positions we have on a regular basis? So, so in terms of your question, I'll leave it up to the council to determine. I think definitely it should continue to be in the newsletter. Not everyone gets a newsletter, so I would say it should be in at least one print publication at a minimum. And
I'd like to see it in the Breeze.
my recommendation was gonna be the Valley Breeze for at least print. I don't care if it goes to the Woonsocket Call too. I mean, they get a lot of circulation. If we want to really maximize it, we should probably put it in as many as possible. But I'll leave that up to the rest of the council.
No, I think that's a good idea, and also, the NRI Now, because it's digital, so it's quick, it goes to inboxes right away, so just
But-
another method.
We're really advertising for one position.
Well, we're trying to
Right.
establish, I guess, a process that will be consistent as we go along, so whether it's this one or another,
So
but you're right, for this particular one.
I guess, Councilman Bjerga, my only question is, when you wanted it advertised, is the newsletter good enough?
What's past practice is we've had it in at least one publication in the newsletter.
Okay.
NRI Now is what we usually use. It's a lot more reasonable. We did go way over budget last year with advertising, so we've been trying to use NRI Now if we do advertising.
I think we should just be cognizant that not everybody has a computer in the internet, even in 2023. So I do think we should still put it in a print publication.
Okay.
I think if we're going over budget on print publications, or notices, then we should probably have a conversation at this year's budget
Mhm.
to figure out why we went over budget. So,
We were doing a lot of advertising for committees. We had so many openings, it seemed like every other month we had ads in the paper, so.
yeah, so I think maybe we could reduce the frequency. And that's what I'm saying, we need a process, so we're not going over budget on print ads, so. Okay, so we'll do one print publication, NRI Now, and is the Valley Breeze fine?
Yep.
Okay, we'll do the Valley Breeze, and then the newsletter as well.
Get the man from the Woonsocket Call here, we're not even.
Oh, yeah, no, we're not just limited. I said at least one.
So for clarity, Valley Breeze, NRI Now,
Yeah,
and question now, Woonsocket Call.
yeah, if you want to do I said at least one, so.
Okay, well, I need a
I know the
I
Breeze
wanna
is
make sure
free,
that I
that's
have
the
a
only reason I
consensus.
said the Breeze is it's free and it's everywhere you go, but I'm fine with using the Woonsocket Call if we want to do it in this time.
So, if you don't mind, give me direction, I just want to hear it clearly. NRI Now, correct?
Yeah.
Or
Our newsletter, that's not difficult. The Breeze and the Woonsocket Call.
And the call, yeah.
Okay.
So you want Breeze and the
Oh.
call?
So I think I'm going to leave it up to the administrator. I think he can handle this one. You can navigate the grant process, you can navigate this.
I prefer using.
I don't know what the costs are to advertise per se. I know the Breeze is a little bit of expensive.
is.
I don't know what the call price is.
It is more reasonable through Valley Breeze.
So I can leave it up to you in terms if you want to expand the scope, and do the call. If it's too expensive and you find, just leave it with the
I'll have a
Breeze.
conversation with the finance director.
Yeah, that'd be
where
great.
that money's going
I don't know
from.
what the budget looks like right now for that line item, so I'll leave it to your discretion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alrighty, next up is the Conservation Commission.
Mr. President, point of order.
Yeah,
Number one, you got way off track with this discussing how you're gonna advertise, because you had a motion to rescind a motion that you made.
Yeah.
Now you need to act on that rescinding of the motion before you take any other action. So you need to make that motion again to appoint that person, and then vote it down if you wanna rescind it.
okay,
If you don't do that, you can't take any other action.
okay. So, David, going forward.
Did you vote on the motion?
We did vote on the motion to reconsider, but I see what Mr. Vadney's saying. So is there a motion to appoint
Donna?
Donna Naradowi to the item B, one member of the public for a term?
There
You
is.
could just make a motion to table it. You reconsider the position.
So we don't need to actually redo the same?
You
Okay.
rescinded it. Wasn't your motion to reconsider the motion, did that pass?
That does.
I thought we were already had done that when we said we would talk about this at the 11th.
But now you can table that item.
But I thought that's what we were doing when we said we would talk about the 11th, but we need to take a vote.
Take a vote.
Okay. So then I will take a vote to table this item to the 11th of April at our next meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay, is there a roll call vote? So, Mr. Bennett, I'm going to defer to the solicitor's advice on this one.
You reconsidered the vote.
We did reconsider the vote.
And somebody makes a motion to table has priority, so the motion can go forward on table it, and it stops the vote from going forward.
So, under the recommendation of the solicitor, there was a motion to table and a second. You good, Joanne? Okay, roll call vote.
Ms. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Ogier?
Yes. Alrighty, next up is the Conservation Commission. One member for completion of a 3-year term ending 11/30/25, appointed by TA with town council approval.
Mr. President, it's a pleasure for me to appoint Robert Gillette to the position on the Conservation Commission. You have his hopefully you have his application. Well-versed, he's a conservation officer. He's EPA civil inspector for Narragansett Indian Tribe, oversaw hunting, fishing, and land use in timber. So, be a great asset to the town. That's my appointee.
He's also in the room tonight.
Yeah, I said hi to him earlier. I saw him.
Alrighty, do we have a motion to appoint?
I make a motion to appoint
To
Mr.
accept.
Well, it's just
Gillette-
approved.
sorry.
Just approve. I appointed him.
Oh, sorry, a motion to approve, sorry.
I'll make the motion to
Go ahead.
approve the recommendation for Mr. Gillette to the Conservation Commission.
Is there a
Second.
second? Alrighty, roll call vote.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yes.
Mr. Ogier.
Yes. Next up, Economic Development Commission, one member for completion of a 5-year term ending 11/30/27, appointed by the TA with town council approval. Mr.
Mr.
Administrator?
President, it's a pleasure to appoint Dominic Ragnisi. I think most people in this ordinance will recognize Dominic as serving on the Budget Committee for the past 4 years. He's a business person, owns a small business, real estate license in the past, professor of business over at Johnson & Wales University, highly qualified. That's my appointee.
Make a motion to approve Dominic Ignasi.
Second.
Alrighty, roll call vote.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yes.
Mr. Ogier.
Yes.
Congratulations, Dominic.
Congratulations. Discussion, next up is discussion by council vote or other action on contract negotiations with recommended applicant for master planning services, Hallowell property, Mr. Porter.
Thank you, Mr. President. This past Thursday, we had held interviews as the Hallowell Review Committee, interviewing BH&A and Studio Jade. The board has taken a vote and unanimously recommends to the council going forward with BH&A for master planning services. So what we'd be looking for tonight is a motion in favor of contract negotiations, which would include the solicitor, the administrator, and could also include myself in requesting a standard AIA contract to move forward with the process.
Any discussion? Oh.
I just have a quick question, Mr. Solicitor. So this was an RFQ that went out, and the original qualifications were January 31st of '23. So those applications came in.
Yep.
In time for that,
Yes,
right? So-
correct.
Okay, so we're all set.
Yep. Yeah, we would have thrown them out if they came in after the fact.
Okay, so, okay, great. Thank you. So we have here in front of us the RFQ. We don't have anything in terms of,
Correct. I had requested that the RFQ just be put in
Okay.
place in your agenda just as a reference. What we typically do is we ask that becomes an attachment to an AIA contract to outline the scope of work that we're expecting to be done. So there's a portion in that RFQ that says scope of work,
yeah,
and that is what we are expecting BH&A to complete.
okay.
And then that would show up as an amendment in the contract to reflect that.
And you don't believe that it would exceed the amount that was originally approved for the, how are we doing that? Because I know
I'm still holding that it should be budgeted, well, you've already budgeted the 60,000.
60,
But
right.
I am still going to recommend that there's another 60,000 that comes in after the budget goes through
Right.
to complete this process. The gentleman from BH&A, Joel Bargman, he's the principal there. He outlined a schedule that was about 8 to 9 months. So we are kind of straddling 2 budget seasons at this point. And then that 60,000 would come, for the first half, and then the second half, the other 60,000 would move forward.
Thank you.
Mhm. And then if you need any background on BH&A, we did have a wonderful interview with the gentleman, Mr. Bargman, from the company. He's been doing this for 35-plus years. He's been doing master planning services for community-type spaces all throughout Rhode Island and Massachusetts. So we felt that he was very well qualified to move forward with, and he would be a very good fit for this town. And if you want to get caught up, it's still on YouTube to stream and see his presentation too.
So is there any other discussion?
Yeah, I don't doubt the qualifications. I'm sure they're excellent choices, very qualified people, and I take your recommendation very seriously. I just don't think now's the time. As I stated all along on this, I just don't think now's the time to spend $120,000 on this project right now, when we don't even know which direction we're going to with the Hallowell property. But I've said that before.
We did apply for a grant for it, right?
What's that?
We did apply for $1 million grant for it.
Yeah, but that doesn't cost the town $120,000.
No, but
It was a non-match grant.
a master plan would be beneficial if we have $1 million to do something with it, wouldn't it?
I don't know. The master plan, I don't know if the master plan is necessary, or just a good architect is necessary to decide where we want to put different things. That if we want to put a pickleball court, or basketball court, or tennis courts and stuff. I don't know if do we need a master plan to?
At this point, at your previous council meeting, you've already approved the
I understand. I'm just saying
$60,000.
why I'm saying voting.
So I understand and I respect that. However, we're still holding steadfast that a master plan is the best way to move forward, because that will end up getting you more money than just doing open space.
Mr. Porter, didn't you mention in one of your explanations that a master plan is just that, and alterations can be made as you come to decisions?
That's correct.
Okay.
And I still think a master plan would allow us to, we could use that in a grant application process.
That's very true. And then, Mr. Biergard, just to address that concern of open space, we had set forth a set of questions to the applicants prior to our interviews. And open space, we identified open space as being potential phase one. And Mr. Bargman had redone his entire presentation to address all of the open space that he has completed. So I encourage you to watch his presentation and to see the 35-plus years of work that he has done that I think would be greatly beneficial to this town. You know, we didn't focus just solely on a building, like you have been saying. We are looking at a very large picture for this property. It's 40 acres. There's a lot to do. So the fact that Mr. Bargman had listened to our questions, he went down and visited the site and understood that open space would likely be our first priority, he changed up his entire game and set forth a very wonderful presentation, which I think would be, again, very beneficial to move forward with.
I'll make sure I watch it, thank you. And it's no reflection on you or Mr. Bodman, my no vote. Yeah, I explained it.
I know.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Okay, is there a motion to hire?
A motion to
DHA.
proceed with
Motion to
contract
proceed with the
negotiations.
Contract negotiations.
Thank you.
Motion?
Second?
It's there. B, H, and A.
Second?
Okay, pending and no further discussion, roll call vote.
Mr. Biragad,
No.
Ms. Hamilton,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara,
Yes.
Mr. Ogier.
Yes,
Thank you all.
thank you, Jeff.
Mr. Zelinski, Mr. Igliozzi, I will be emailing you tomorrow. Get that rolling. So then next meeting, you guys should be able to vote on it.
Thanks, Jeff. All right, next up, discussion by council vote or other action on amending rules of council pertaining to open forum. Mr. Biragad.
Yeah, I would bring your attention to rule number 14 on the rules of order. And if you go to I, and then II, open forum for agenda, oh, I'm sorry, go to I, open forum for scheduled agenda items. This has nothing to do, this does not limit anybody from speaking. It does not limit anybody from getting up there and saying whatever they want. It doesn't limit discussion on anything. You're more than welcome during open forum to come up and discuss whatever you want, as we have seen happens. It does not limit the openness of the town council. You can still get up there and say whatever you want. However, I find it unnecessary. I've already made my argument, so my motion is to remove item I, open forum for scheduled agenda items, and go back to, and they can go back and they can speak on those topics at the beginning of the meeting. It doesn't have to happen at the end of the night. So I'm making a motion to remove I, open forum for scheduled agenda items.
Okay, that's a motion. Is there a second?
Second?
Okay, discussion. I'll recognize you in a second. I said at the last meeting, well, first, I was the one that had recommended that we put this in. I am still for it. I don't think that we should be removing it. I do agree that our town council meetings have been exceedingly long, probably longer than normal due to the amount of executive session that has partaken. And I think that we found after the executive session is done, the meetings move relatively pretty quick. We're almost done with the agenda and it's only 8 o'clock. And so I think it's too early to say just scratch it and get rid of it. I think we can also look to, if we find that a topic may need more than, just one more discussion, maybe we need to have then, like a public hearing or some type of wording on it that the audience would know that, okay, maybe we're going to focus that so that way it's not all coming at the end. I think there's value to it. Other communities do it. I think there's reasons why. So I think we should keep it. I don't think it should go away. And not a lot of times people speak at it anyways, so I don't think it's taking up that much time.
May I?
Yes.
I just think it's important to give people an opportunity to speak during a meeting, after a meeting, before a meeting, emailing us so that we can give you answers. I mean, we work for you, and I think it's very important that you feel comfortable. You know, you don't feel like you're restricted, or you don't feel like you have few opportunities to get your views across. You know, everybody has something to say, and I think we should be here to listen. I don't think we have to worry about it going too extensively over time, as we've had some, you know, some opportunity to see how it goes in the last several months, and so far it's been working out well. It doesn't mean that we can't revisit the issue at some point in the future, but I think right now, unless we found it to be an extremely detrimental addition to our agenda in terms of time, you know, capturing, I think we owe it to people to have an opportunity for them to speak up when they feel they need to.
I know you had your hand up. Did you still want to?
I think, Paulette, you covered pretty much everything on the
Does anybody have any other discussion?
I don't think anybody has ever felt that they don't have the opportunity to speak. The council historically has been very open during open forum, allowing people to speak and say whatever they need to speak. But, you know, it's just my opinion that it's an unnecessary item on the agenda.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Just like to stress, if that's kept on our agenda, they have to speak about a topic that has been covered at that meeting, not anything new.
Only that one, not the top
Yeah.
one, first one, right?
Right.
Yep. Yep. Yes, that is only for scheduled agenda items only. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Mr. Biragad?
So a
Whether
yes
we
vote
voted.
says, yeah,
Yes
just so we're
vote.
clear, a yes vote says we approve removing it, correct?
Right, because you made the
Yes.
motion to remove it.
Yes.
So I'm yes.
Ms. Hamilton?
No.
Mrs. O'Hara?
No.
Mr. Ogier?
No.
But again, I stress, you can't stray from, if it wasn't brought up during the meeting, it's not going to be a free-for-all at the end. Do we all agree on that?
Yes, we all agree.
Okay,
Sure.
thank you.
All right. All right. Next up, item D, discussion by council vote or other action on memo of agreement for access to Maori Tower. Mr. Zlowinski.
Councilors, it's been brought to my attention about 10 days ago that Mr. Hardy has some concerns about accessing the Maori Tower. You have to use his driveway to get up there. He's a very amenable man. He works with the town. I think what he's looking to do here is just to make sure that the travel up through his driveway to Maori Tower is restricted to town vehicles, emergency vehicles. Notice should be given to Mr. Hardy by telephone, text messaging that it's coming. During an emergency, of course, vehicles will be able to go up there. What had happened was one of the antennas that serviced the city of Woonsocket went down. It was an emergency. They had to get up there, but it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, so it can be a little unnerving, somebody knocking at your door. The bigger gist of this all, though, he wants to make sure that it does not become continuous, exclusive, or adverse or notorious possession of the real property, meaning that the town will not become a right-of-way for the town to go up there at any time. It's his property, he's trying to protect that. But I'm going to defer to the solicitor who can address this more eloquently in legal terms or explain it better than I do.
Mr. President, members of the council, this is pretty much a straightforward temporary limited agreement. It's entitled Memorandum of Agreement between the town and Mr. and Mrs. Hardy, that the town's going to get access to cross his driveway as necessary. You know, the town has its own access that needs to be improved, but right now this is the only way for the town to perform its functions. All he's asking for is reasonable notice in advance, absent an emergency, and that the town does not try to establish any permanent rights by utilizing, crossing the land. And obviously, Other than that, it's a relatively simple agreement. I read it, reviewed it, I'm satisfied with it. I don't think the town has any interest in trying to interfere with Mr. Hardy's use and enjoyment of his driveway and land any more than it needs to. And his wife, and his wife.
Okay.
And I would recommend that the town approve the memorandum of agreement and authorize the administrator to sign.
Okay, hearing the advice of the solicitor, is there a recommendation to approve and to authorize the administrator to sign?
So moved.
Second?
Roll call, any other discussion? Roll call vote?
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yes.
Mr. Ogier.
Yes. Next up, discussion by council vote or other action regarding a request for proposal RFP for a grant writer. Mr. Zawinski.
What you have before you is a well-crafted RFP. It was crafted by the town planner, Mark Carullo. A template was submitted to me, and I forwarded it to Mr. Carullo. Template was submitted by Council President Alves. That it was from the town of Situate, which pretty much mirrored a RFQ that was presented by the city of Providence. So if you had a chance to read it and you have questions, I'll be happy to try to explain them to you.
Does anybody have any questions for the administrator?
I just would like to, on the second page under scope of work, review and assume reporting and management of all existing town grants. So the person that you're looking for will be the manager throughout the entire process as well.
Well, if we're fortunate enough to appoint a grant writer, they will assume the management and the reporting on the ones that are in place. That grant writer will also seek out opportunities for the town which are in alignment with the goals of the town council. They'll bring it forward to you. The grant will be applied for, and then all administrative and management duties will be followed up by that grant writer. So in essence, and all these grants that are in place right now will be administered by a potential grant writer.
Does anybody have any other questions or discussion? So I have a question, Mr. Administrator. I know you mentioned that Ms. Alves forwarded you the application. Has she had a chance to weigh in on the RFP?
It's a question you could pose to her.
And would you be okay if we were to table this to the 11th?
Well,
Or to
just
our
like,
next meeting?
it's entirely a council's decision. You want to table it till the 11th, then you just push it out further, out into going out to seek an RFP, people to apply for it, interviewing them, because I'm sure council would like to interview these folks. It's entirely up to this council. You have a quorum tonight to make that decision.
Yeah, I would feel more comfortable having the president weigh in on it. She's been involved in the process, from the beginning, so if it's going to be another couple of weeks, it's probably worth it.
I only asked because she's mentioned as a project representative, so I think it's only fair that she has the right to weigh in. I don't think anyone's going to disagree that there's value to a grant writer, but I would just want her opinion to be heard on the matter. So I would just ask that we table this. Do we need to take a motion? Okay.
Are you going to put this on the 11th? Or
We don't need to put it on the 11th because I think the 11th is probably going to be pretty long already. So, because we already have this senior center, multi-generational committee, right? So I would say we could put this on the next agenda. And if we need to have a meeting before then, I am more than willing to come back later this week or next week, anytime to have a conversation. So I would ask the
17th.
So I don't need a motion, or do I?
No.
Okay. Okay. Does anybody have any objection? Next up, discussion by council vote of the action on amendment of water supply review committee resolution. That's me. So I asked the solicitor to just write an update to the original resolution we passed in, well, the second amendment that we passed in January, to extend it from 60 to 150 days total. I can give a quick update as to where the committee is. We're going to be looking to come before the town council probably at one of the next 2 meetings. We've been doing a lot of research as it related to the ordinance and the comp plan. We've spoken to DEM. We're going to be speaking to a member of EPA. We've really looked into the changes that have been made in the last couple of years and also the history as it related to this ordinance. We're also going to be having in, under the direction of DEM, Lorraine Jobert, I always have trouble pronouncing her last name, from URI. She is the go-to person for DEM to look at not just this resolution, but other resolutions that feed it as well as they relate to both the comp plan and our own code of ordinances, and making sure that they're up to speed with what the state would advise. So there has been a lot of work. We've been meeting weekly, pretty much every week. So there is a need to extend it, and I would ask that the council extend it. So I can make a motion on this, right? I will make a motion to approve the amendment up to 150 days of the Water Supply Review Committee. I ask for a second.
Second.
There's a second. Roll call, any discussion? All right, barring none, roll call vote.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yes.
Mr. Ogier.
Yes. Thanks, everyone. Next up, last item before we get to open forum. Discussion by council vote or other action on amendment of Code of Ordinances, Section 6.4, purchasing and competitive bidding procedure. So I think the reason I put this on here, you'll see I co-sponsored it with President Elves, and having talked to her because she's out sick, I think we're going to ask to table this. I want her here as well to weigh in on it. The only thing in just kind of setting it up for people to think about more going forward is I know we had made the change. As our own ordinance says, which is pretty much verbatim to state law in this section, is pursuant to RIGL 4555-9. It does state the $5,000, but it says for all purchases may be made in accordance with the small purchase regulations promulgated by each municipality. And then in our packet, there is a code of chapter from Lincoln, which you'll see is pretty comprehensive. But in there, they carve out kind of, what's a contract, what's not. It's very thorough, very clear, easy to follow. And even under the $5,000 for small purchase, they talk about that if the amount of the procurement is in excess of $2,500 but no more than $5,000, a minimum of 3 verified and recorded telephone bids shall be solicited and an award made on the basis thereof. So I just think it's good that we review it again, just to kind of, or we think it would be good to review it again just to make sure that it's as clear as possible and we avoid any confusion like we had the last time. So I'll open it up to a discussion. If not, we'll put that on the 17th. 17th. And if it's too long, then you and Kim can
As of now, no.
adjust.
So,
Yeah,
so the administrator does have the authority to make a is that according to this? Because according to this resolution, the administrator does have the authority to make a purchase up to $5,000, then correct?
So according to the way, and David, correct me if I'm wrong, the way that I read this, and I'm not the legal expert, but it would be that he does. What I would question is the matching. If a grant is applied for a match, I would advise that he probably does, but I think for transparency purposes, the council should probably be involved, just so we know, okay, there could be a potential commitment of money. But what I think what we should do is we should just treat it the same regardless, right? Like, it's not like you have to go out and buy like a lawnmower, right? I mean, you can, he has the money, it's in the budget, but I think you're going to go out and you're going to get multiple quotes. You're not just going to go buy the Home Depot and buy the first lawnmower you see unless you absolutely need that lawnmower. So I know it talks about if they're the only sole source of supply, grant writers are not the only sole source of supply. So I think, well, it is under the ordinance allowed, and I'm not going to argue that. I just think we should probably just clean up the process so it's a little clearer for everybody.
No, that's fine. It's
Yeah.
just the only contention was last week, 2 weeks ago, the contention was that he didn't have the authority but he did. That's all I want to make sure that we're on the same page.
Yeah, I read it as he did. The money wasn't the issue. It's just the process, I think, just needs to be cleaner, but that's just my opinion.
Well, money was never an issue because it was in the budget for $20,000, and the acting finance director at that point said, we have 20,000, we can go for 4 months, which I'm not going for. But the money was there. It was never a question of money. I think the question became, does the sitting town administrator have the authority to spend no more than $5,000?
So I think while the money is there, I don't know if you can, and David, correct me if I'm wrong on this, it's in no more than aggregate of $5,000. So if you were to, say, approve a second month, I would question if that is actually allowed under the ordinance. It might be, but
Oh, no, I would agree. You certainly cannot break that down in chunks.
you'd have to go find a new grant writer, yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, so I think it's just cleaning it up and definitely worth another conversation. If nothing comes of it, then, we looked at it. Alrighty. Next up, open forum, agenda items only. I don't have a list of anybody. Does anybody in the public want to speak? Jeff, Mr. Porter, you can go.
Excuse me, Jeff, I'm sorry. Linda, before you leave, I think I would, if it's okay, I would like to ask Linda to join us in executive session. She could shed some light on the topic, if that's okay.
Okay. If she,
It'd just be it's going to be 10 minutes, not even.
okay.
Sit back down.
We're going to be here till midnight. No, just kidding.
10 minutes, I promise you, it's only gonna be 10 minutes.
Mr.
You heard it
Porter.
here first, 10 minutes. I just want to speak on the multi-generational committee. At the conclusion of our meeting on this past Thursday with the Hallowell Review Committee, we, as a committee, want to make sure that we're working in collaboration with whoever is appointed to that board. We want to share the information that we have to date. We want this to be a collaborative nature. I know sometimes a lot of these committees sometimes work in silos, and we're trying really hard to break that because we're really working towards similar situations. So I would just hope that the council will allow for us to have joint meetings with both, potentially the council, the Hallowell Review Committee, and the Multi-Generational Committee, just because there's already so much information that's out that we already have. And I would hate for them to duplicate efforts and, start from square one. Really want to make sure that we are all on the same page working towards a common goal. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Clifford?
I'm just confused. Where was that ordinance that said $5,000? Because I didn't find that on the town website. I looked all over the place, and was it up there? It was not up there. So why wasn't that ordinance listed on the town website?
I can speak for that. So I apologize for that. When we moved over to this building, we had a system that we could use where we could insert the changes for the ordinances. We lost that system when we came into this building. I was the deputy at the time. I mentioned that this was a problem because we had nowhere to go to insert these new ordinances into the code. We have since been correcting that. We've signed a contract in February of ¡21, and I've been working on, I have 306 ordinances that need to be recodified. So that will be before the meeting.
All right, thanks.
So,
'Cause I just-
but you can go on to Clerk Base.
Yeah.
Now you can, and they should have been there prior to, but Clerk Base was not uploading the ordinances. They were only putting minutes and agendas.
Okay.
So it'll be a much cleaner process when we're done, so I hope by July 1st.
I just wanted to make sure I didn't,
No.
see.
I just add something
Sure.
to the clerk, just so the council's aware, because some of the council were not on the members. A year ago, the council adopted, entered into a contract with a company called General Code, which recodified the whole code. So they're reviewing the code to see about consistency with state law, as well as consistency, anything that's outdated, as well as all the new changes. And she's indicating over 300 pieces of legislation. That's all going to be recodified and re-uploaded. But that process takes over a year for it to be finalized. That was what, February of?
21. It should be done
21.
by, this should hopefully be on one of the next agendas, and then adopted,
So
and then we can
you'll be
move
getting
forward.
an omnibus a package of an entire code of amendments that you already kind of adopted, that there'll be some changes along the way. You'll have to go through it, but ultimately, that will be passed, and that'll bring the code up to date.
So to avoid anything from now till when, July or whenever, is there something that we can do to take those ordinances that have yet to be codified and put them somewhere on the website so that they can be accessed?
So they're not on the website, but if you go onto the website, there's a link clerk base, and that will have all of them listed on that.
Now,
Now it does.
Okay.
So-
Is it easily accessible to
Yes.
people? Again, if we can't
Well,
find
it
it,
is
we
now,
couldn't
but-
find it, how is the average person going to be able to find it? And, if we're working on something relative to that, we'd want to have easy access, right?
I'll work on that with Tammy, and we can try to find something where we can put new ordinances or temporary until
Yeah, I have
codification's
seen that
complete.
in other municipalities on their websites. They have a box on the front page of their landing page, and, it says that there are ordinances yet to be codified, and can we have them, they can be just identified as such, not blaming anybody as to why they're not in the book, but they'll be in the book. But until then, if we have an issue, we don't want to have this discussion again, right, so thank you.
You're welcome.
If it involves an ordinance that has been codified yet, can we get that copy of the ordinance if it's in our packet? Because I think if we had just had the updated version, it would be, it may be good for us to just start including until they all get uploaded online even. No,
Yeah,
like for I'm gonna use an example. Okay, I'll clarify. For
No one
this, the
remembered.
purchasing,
No one remembers.
last
That's
week,
Right.
right? Nobody remembered. There was like 6 people that were involved in the change. And
I
nobody
didn't remember
remembered.
either, so I
So
apologize,
if we just
but
had
there's
it
a
in
lot
our
of them.
packet, I think we would have just saved now as worth a conversation and moved on. So I think it's just
So
to
if
kind
there's
of,
if there's a change in an ordinance or
and
amendment
it's
or
in the
some,
packet,
then
yeah.
we'll look and see if there's something
So
amended.
maybe, David, you could just review it if there's an ordinance.
I
just to
wouldn't
make
say
sure.
nobody remembered, the administrator remembered.
Well, okay. It would have been clear if it was in the packet, though, so.
Right.
Right. So,
Okay,
and
I didn't either.
I think it would
I
be good
remembered
to.
for tonight.
Yeah, and I think it would be good to probably at some point have a conversation about the website, because it needs some work.
So the clerk's office is not in charge of the website. Tammy has been helping out with that, trying to fill in, but it's definitely quite a task. So,
Can we add to the next agenda or the agenda after that? Just, you can put
Yeah,
on
we
next
have to
agenda, but
Talk about it.
to have a discussion about the website, and, because other municipalities, it's really easy. You go on, you know exactly where you're going. Like, I've been on like multiple other communities, and I can pretty much find everything with no problem. So,
normally that's, like I said, that's set up by the administrator's admin, but we've had some changes.
yeah, no, it's
with,
okay. I just
you
think
know-
having, just put it on for a discussion, and then if we need to, have, council funds to help revamp it, then at least then we can have that conversation on the
Okay.
record. Thanks. All right, anybody else that wish to speak? Okay, barring none, we are not adjourning. We're gonna, we will be going into executive session, so is there, again, I'll read the motion again. Is there a motion to go into executive session? This is for discussion only pursuant to RIGL 42465A, where any discussions or considerations related to the acquisition or lease of real property or for public purposes, or of the disposition of publicly held property where in advance public information would be detrimental to the interest of the public, a discussion regarding the acquisition of real property for public purposes. Is there a motion to enter?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yes.
Mr. Ogier.
Yes. All right. I'd like to make well, I'll ask for a motion to come out of executive session, let the record reflect that no votes were taken, and to seal the minutes.
So moved.
All right, is there a second? All right, roll call vote.
Sorry.
Oh, you're right, all right. Point of order.
Are you about,
I asked for him to be live before we went live.
Mr. Beauregard?
What? We're coming back and sealing the minutes.
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Ogier?
Yes. And I asked for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Roll call vote.
You just don't all in favor.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.